national sovereignty, trying to solve the climate change issue, the atmosphere is going to say, is there intelligent life on this planet? Because there isn't none. We're just acting as if we were fungus, which is another illustration which
I think I saw a question at the back, yeah? Can we help with the microphone, somebody?
It was really just a response to Dr. McCoy and what Steve just said. I actually get the feeling that it's perhaps not so much a case of... I think, yes, definitely outreach programs do need to happen, and you have to keep hitting young people with this. But I get the feeling that young people are perhaps already more responsive and more receptive to these kinds of things. I think where these kinds of messages have to be hammered home is actually people much older than that. And, you know, unfortunately, I mean, that it's amongst the constituents of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s and older, where a lot of the political and economic power lies everywhere. So really, I suppose going back to the original thing of how do we change mindsets, once again, I think we do need to be really trying to tackle it there. Yeah, I still don't know how we're going to do that.
Actually, I'm kind of, can I just respond to that as well? I'm just thinking about tiffin carriers and how tiffin carriers was something that I grew up with. And tiffin carriers is something that my parents and my grandparents' generations really, really identify with. And I'm thinking that maybe it's not the old people or the people who are older than me who are really problematic. I think it's actually my generation of people who got used to styrofoams and plastic bags and Tupperwares and throw away plastic spoons and forks. You know, and yeah, so I'm just wondering also, wanting to talk wondering aloud about this notion that it's the older people who are harder to change, when really I think it's my generation, the generation that grew up more affluent than my parents' generation and the generation before that.
Yeah, I mean, think about the amoeba. There's some old people that are mainstreamers, there's some old people that are going to be laggards, there's some young people that are going to be laggards, and there's some young people that are going to be reactionaries. You know, I don't think it's a question of age. My best example for the old dog and new tricks is a guy called Ray Anderson. Ray Anderson built a multi-million-dollar corporation in America selling carpets until his workers asked him the question, or actually it was his workers' wives asked the workers the question, what is your company doing for the environment? They started a committee to look for the factory workers. What are they going to do for the environment? They invited the CEO to give the first opening address. The CEO didn't know what to say. And he was really panicking about this. He had built a multi-million-dollar business. And he didn't know what to say. So he read a book, changed his whole life. And he's now changed his whole company. Completely reversed it around. And so Interface, they still make carpet, but they're one of the most sustainable companies on the planet, and that is an old dog learning new tricks. At the age of, I think, 60, he did this. And the book that you want to read, if you want to read about old dogs and new tricks, is Confessions of an Ecological Industrialist, or something like that.
He's also on TED.com. He gave a talk.
He does lots of very interesting talks. Yeah, he has a real kind of cowboy accent.
Yeah, totally sort of, you know, Southern American, Republican, cowboy.
And in fact, when he talks, he will say all these kind of really not important things, just so that the audience will get used to his accent. It's that bad.
There was a question right at the back, yeah?
I mean, I find this talk very stimulating, but I mean, what I've heard so far is that it's all how individuals can make a difference. But I think we should look at from another perspective that, one of the subjects I teach is actually change management. And there is this term called intervention. So I believe that while the individual can play a part, at the end of the day, you still must have some mandatory interventions that could make a difference quicker, because the Asian mindset is pretty unique. We are relatively stubborn, we're very indifferent. I'm here not because I'm pro-environment, I'm not pro-eco, I don't give a damn about it. Although I believed it, talking about not using shampoo and soap. I tried it for 3.5 weeks. Then I miss my shampoo, I miss my perfumes, and I'm back into it. I've blogged about it, even in my blog. I believed in it, but I'm just not committed enough to be able to want to do it non-shampoo or non-poo for the rest of my life. So I guess there are many of us that are into this, but we are quite ambivalent about it. So I guess one way would be like what the Penang government is doing, Selangor government, no plastic thing. People get used to it over time. It's a slow process, but somebody got to do it. So I guess part of it is because, while all you guys are so eco people, but there is no leadership, there is no cohesiveness, there is no coherent coming together to push this agenda through so that more people get educated, more people become aware, and more people join the bandwagon. So I think you have to do it at 2 levels.
Both as an individual musician and at another level as...
Somebody got to talk to the government, knock some heads, change the federal government. I subscribe to that totally. Things like that. So I guess it's a question of leadership.
Absolutely.
I'm sure between the 3 of you, you all are familiar with examples where you've seen it work, right? Not just at an individual level,
Yeah, one of the questions that you gave us to prepare was to talk about good examples.
That's right. Yeah.
So there are. In the corporate sector, there are a handful of examples. A handful, literally. Ray Anderson is one of them. Patagonia is another. They are showing corporate leadership beyond the whatever the customer wants, the customer can have kind of leadership. On a national government front with climate change, I think it's really, I don't know, the president of Maldives, he's kind of on a different level to other people. But I think on a government level, it's really local governments that are doing a much better job than national government. So, for example, California in the USA, Scotland, followed closely by Wales in the UK. What are the other ones? North Rhine-Westphalia, which is better than anywhere else in Germany. Flanders in Belgium. South Australia, followed pretty closely by New South Wales in Australia. So local government, I think you find the best examples. You find great leadership in some cities with mayors. Seattle, for example, Pittsburgh has actually gone quite a long way to developing urban living in sustainable fashions, and you can see these lists. What else are we talking about? Yeah.
So did you have examples as well?
Not Malaysia, and as far as influencing policy, but not only corporations are influencing making change, but in a small social enterprise in India that we have seen work. It's called Ecosphere SPT. So they are one of the pioneering sort of tourism operators in this region in India, and they have been lobbying local government to sort of study the carrying capacity of area so that they know how to limit tourism in that whole area, because it's a very vulnerable area. It's a high altitude desert, right? And it's difficult when you're dealing with politicians, and because of so many, we all know so many different things. So it's. I feel businesses still work faster, I think, than governments, and we've said, there are a lot of examples of businesses who've been changing and leading a change in their sectors, right? It's just we don't see it so much in Malaysia, we also work with companies, oil palm companies who are trying to push that way. But a lot of so-called leaders in the oil palm, as an example, a sector in Malaysia, there's so many of them who are so big, who can do so much, there's so much financial clout, political clout, but they don't lead in a real sense of the word,
Yeah.
And
Hillary's sitting there. She can tell us a lot about oil palm companies. I just noticed actually yesterday that Ed Miliband is now the leader of the Labour Party. He actually beat his brother, which was a big surprise. And I haven't followed UK politics for a long time, but I've been following Ed because in the previous government he was a climate change and energy minister. And if you can Google, Mr. Google will help you. You can Google Ed and look at all the kind of interactions that he has in the UK with people like Franny Armstrong, who started the 1010 campaign, and the kind of discourse that you're able to have with UK politicians, and try and imagine that with our Malaysian ministers. It's just difficult to imagine that kind of thing. And I think in Malaysia, we need what we've been sorely lacking is conviction politicians. I don't have many of those. I guess Kyrie is probably one of them. Like him or love him, he is a conviction politician. I remember him when he was in university in Oxford. He's always been passionate in the political sphere. Too many ministers and politicians in Malaysia go into politics in order to make money. And so how on earth are you going to have a decent political discourse with these people, and how on earth are they going to show political leadership? Can't. So, younger generation. You are the most important generation on the planet ever in history. Over to you.
Having said that though, don't you think that what the Selangor and Penang governments are doing in terms of No Plastic Day?
Completely brilliant.
I mean, it's a step in the right direction. Not
absolutely
ideal, but at least something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, a couple of years ago when I went to my last climate change conference, which was COP14 in Poznan, and 14 days I was just depressed, until I actually got in touch with the people who were working on local government. So all those little local government people that I mentioned to you about, Basque country in Spain, they're the leaders in Spain, and I thought that's the way to go forward. So we don't have to talk so much to federal government and climate change policy, go into local government. And of course we had this huge tsunami, we have this opposition, Selangor, Penang, until I started to realize what local government in Malaysia could and couldn't do. And literally, they can't do anything. They are so disempowered. And it's not only a disempowerment, it's also dysfunctional, because the only thing they can look after is the land. And it's also not only dysfunctional, which is part of our constitutional history, but it's also dysfunctional morally. So our federal government thinks nothing of collectively punishing the citizens of a state who didn't vote for Barisan Nasional, and that is repugnant for a government to even contemplate to do, and they do that openly. So there is so much dysfunctionality here that until we address that, we can do a whole bunch of stuff and get a whole bunch of groups to get together and do the MPPJ thing, which they love.
And then get an umbrella, right?
Get an umbrella or whatever. But in order to really push the change that we need, because things are getting urgent. We didn't do the out-of-the-box question, but things are getting urgent now, and we can't just simply carry on doing the same things over and over again, hoping, crossing our fingers, that it will work this time. I don't think it will.
I think I saw a question. Maybe we can make it the last question for this evening.
Just to change tack a bit, we've been talking about plastic bags and all that, but I'm wondering in Malaysia, is there even the slightest bit of appetite for more sustainable forms of transport and also housing as well? I'm just thinking of the fact that we see more and more skyscrapers going up, and all Malaysians are wedded to their air cons. Is there an appetite for even I'm not talking about huge majority of people, but just
market segment at least? Is that what you're